Guys, the Dark Master here, back again for the next episode in the Answers Marathon. This time it is questions libertarians have for statists. Oh boy, this is gonna be a lot of fun, especially considering how I am, in some ways, a libertarian. But yeah, at least it's not BuzzFeed anymore, so let's start this video.
Hey statists, we've got some questions for you.
Hey, I'll give them this much. Their music is way better than BuzzFeed. Anyway, let's get started.
If a kid couldn't afford lunch because the school bullies kept taking a percentage of his allowance, you wouldn't blame the kid's parents for not giving him enough. So why is it that when people struggle financially, you blame the employer who provides them with money and not the government which is taxing them?
Well, here's a major difference. You see, the bully doesn't build anything really. He just takes the money and goes buy cigarettes. When the government taxes you, he uses the money to build roads, to build hospitals, to build all these social welfare problems. It does this to fix things. It actually uses the money that it takes from you. So that's the difference between this analogy is really bad, by the way. I'd just like to say, Freedom Tunes, you seem a really nice guy, and I didn't really like how the drunken peasants responded to you, but I kind of have to agree this analogy is a little stupid. Let us continue.
For fans of democracy, I would ask, is it okay to forcibly rob, control, or otherwise victimize somebody as long as the majority approves of it?
As a guy who believes in equal rights, I don't believe it's okay to victimize someone because a lot of people say it's good. With that being said, you have to be able to enforce the laws, and as such, jails are necessary. I don't particularly like the death penalty, but there's a reason it exists. To punish people who have committed genocide and other such things. So there's a good reason to have the death penalty. Let us continue.
That every economic system has market failures. Capitalism, socialism, communism, whatever. But my question is, why do you feel morally justified in forcing other people to subsidize these failures? Why should I be forced to subsidize failed electric car companies like Fisker or failed government initiatives like Obamacare? Shouldn't I have the right to decide what the risk I want to take with my own money?
But once you're taxed, it's not your money anymore. It's the government's money. And now listen, the government's a bit flawed when it comes to dealing with money. But I think if everyone had control over their own money, then pretty much nothing would get done, in my opinion. So yeah, to answer your question, I don't really think it's your money anymore. Let us continue.
How come you want to ban things that you don't like? As long as they're not hurting other people, what's the big deal?
I don't believe in banning anything if it offends me. Now, I can disagree with something and not want it to be banned. Now, are there people who want to ban stuff they dislike? Of course they do. I mean, people like AIU want to ban anonymity because they're thin-skinned little cowards. But this question doesn't apply to me, and so, I don't want to ban it. Just for the record. I'm not going to take your guns and drugs away, if that's what you're asking.
Statists of the left who are always talking about how government's going to help the poor and demarginalize marginalized groups. I don't understand this. In the ancient world, through the Middle Ages all the way up to modern times, governments have largely conspired against the poor. I'm thinking in particular a century ago with eugenics programs and segregation programs, and zoning programs, business regulation, human rules, everything was designed to exclude, marginalize, and impoverish groups that didn't have power. Governments are always controlled by rich people. That's it.
It is true that governments are always controlled by the rich people. It is also true that without government, you cannot enforce equal rights. Without government, you cannot enforce fair wages. I think it's funny that social justice warriors and libertarians have to go back nearly 100 years to find actual examples of racism. Look, stop complaining about stuff that happened in the past and look towards the future. You whiners are the exact reason why Bernie Sanders lost. You whiners are the exact reason Donald Trump got elected. I don't get it. You literally work against your own self-interest. America is becoming more progressive. I mean, look at Obama. But you can't just let things happen. You have to complain. You gotta moan. It's like the Utah Outcasts. Someone said something they don't like. Automatically, he's a racist. By the way, those guys are pathetic. And I don't really like this Tucker fellow. But yeah, let's continue.
Makes no sense to me.
So I punched this commie face in and said, how do you like those marks? How can you claim on one hand to be anti-guns, yet on the other hand, you want the state to take guns away at gunpoint?
Hey, how is the government supposed to take rednecks' guns if they don't have guns themselves? What do you expect them to do? To roll up in like their massive tank? Or like come at them with knives? Of course the government's gonna seize your guns with guns itself. That's just because I'm pro gun control, which I'm not, by the way. I'm not pro gun control. I think gun control is a band-aid on a bullet wound. It's not going to do jack diddly squat, but you have to have, the government has to have power to enforce its laws. That's the point. And by the way, this guy's freaking disgusting, but let's continue.
Government has slaughtered 250 million of its own people in acts of democide. How can you trust such a beast to rule over you? And as some of you argue for, to be disarmed to.
Why?
There's a problem. You're conflating all governments, not just like the US government, which is kind of dishonest. But to answer your question, I don't particularly like being disarmed to it. I think I should have the right to bear a gun if I have a license and I'm not crazy, which I'm not. But, so like, this question really does not apply to me. I find it weird that I have to answer these questions that don't apply to me, but whatever. These people they think I'm a statist because I'm not some weirdo wearing a mask, beating up people with a stick.
But no matter how much money the government takes from its citizens, it's always broke.
Because the US government is incompetent, that's why. Yeah, it's pretty simple, really. The complete and utter morons, I think, in some ways. In some ways they're pretty good, but they're not perfect. I mean, you can blame the wars in the Middle East for all this stupid, debt. Go ask Nightmare Fuel about that one.
Keeping 100% of someone else's income is slavery? And at what percentage is it no longer slavery?
Keeping 100% of someone's pay isn't slavery. Slavery is keeping someone in bondage and forcing them to work for nothing. I would say I think at 10% it stops being slavery. Maybe. I really don't know. I mean, you don't get 100% of your income taken away, especially if you do YouTube. So I don't. This is a very silly question. I do believe.
Can a bunch of people who don't have the right to do a certain thing grant to somebody else the right to do it? And if not, how did Congress acquire the right to do things that you and I don't have the right to do?
Can. It's a side effect of democracy. Sometimes people are going to have more power than others. Not everyone can own a nuclear warhead. I wish I could, but we can't all own nuclear warheads. I'm sorry, some people are meant to have more power than others. And I hate having to defend government as if it's some good thing, when really I don't particularly like government. So let's continue, shall we?
Why are you comfortable spending borrowed money knowing your children will have to pay it off down the line? You're increasing their eventual taxes before they can even vote. Isn't that the definition of taxation without representation?
No it isn't, because they don't exist yet. Now, I do believe that someone should actually, prepare for their eventual demise But this is a little extreme. If I haven't had kids, I shouldn't care that they need to pay off my debt. I'd care more about like whether or not they have to live in a polluted wasteland because people like you didn't like government regulations. That's a little more important to me. Now I'm sure not all of you are like crazy, but like I would say the vast majority kind of are. You need government regulations to prevent like global warming and stuff. So anyway, let's continue, shall we?
People are so fucking greedy and selfish that we
This is freaking disgusting. Let's get this off the screen as quickly as possible.
want us to steal from the rich and give to the poor and needy. Then why do over 1.5 million charities exist globally? With $373 billion being made in 2015 alone. And that's not including the Clinton Foundation's money laundering operation. Alleged money laundering operation.
That was disgusting imagery. I couldn't stand it. But to address your argument, I don't think the argument is that people are inherently greedy. I think it's more like people have a self-interest that can conflict with the majority will. You know, that's kind of why people do crazy stuff.
You do realize that making something illegal won't make it go away? Guns, drugs, the black market will provide.
You gotta be fucking kidding.
Everyone knows that.
Some of the money government wasted. The government spent $1.4 million on an app that just simply points left and right for the TSA. That should have been done for way cheaper. Oh, that's not crazy enough for you? How about this? The government wasted $1.4 trillion on a jet that doesn't even work. That's enough to buy every homeless person in the United States a mansion. A $600,000 home. Oh, that's not crazy enough for you. The government lost $6 trillion. Knowing all of this, do you still think the government is spending money more wisely than you can?
I could spend money better than the government. However, I don't have the means to do it. The government does. And the government's not always incompetent. I mean, look at the 1920s and like the 1950s or whatever. Like, the government, you focus on the failures and don't ever address the successes. So I'm not going to play that game. So let's continue, shall we?
How can you rationalize basic philosophical concepts such as non-aggression principle as being quote-unquote too difficult for society to be educated on and abide by, yet believe that hundreds of thousands of pages of federal and state regulations, clauses, case files, and amendments are somehow easier?
Personally, don't think either concepts are particularly easy. That's why we have lawyers. We have lawyers to interpret the law, to decide what's right and wrong. Like that's why we hire lawyers. And I doubt that principle is really hard to do.
It's illegal for me to import my hedgehogs to a multitude of places, but it's totally legal to import thousands upon thousands of fighting-age economic migrants.
Lauren Southern, the person who said that if you're against Trump, you're a member of Antifa, and Thunderfoot exposed you, and you lied about him. Lauren Southern, you're a moron. Do you think that having invasive species everywhere is a good thing? No, it's not. Hedgehogs are extremely invasive. I mean, look at DeviantArt. Look how many Sonic recolors you got there. But to answer your question, I don't particularly like the fact that fighting age migrants are coming to our country. I'm not against it, but I don't like it. So yeah, maybe when you stop lying about Thunderfoot and other people who don't particularly like Trump, maybe we'll consider your opinion valid. I hate this person so much.
If it's wrong for you to do a certain thing, can you, by voting, make it right for someone else to do the exact same thing?
Yes, it's called democracy.
If the competitive market ingenuity of capitalism can deliver us things like iPhones, 3D printers, and private spaceships, why should services as important as justice, roads, and defense be monopolized by the state?
Things need to be monopolized by the state. You can't have, like, Google Defense Corp. Those would be corrupt as heck. You can't have these fractions fighting it out in the middle of the street. Like, that's what you want. You want anarchy. I'm sorry, I don't particularly like anarchy. Also, nice hat, by the way.
Wait, statists. When you're opposing gun laws, you argue the government shouldn't be so powerful that it could disarm the populace. So why, when it comes to drug laws, do you argue the government should be so powerful that it can tell people what they can put into their own bodies?
I personally don't think the government should be so powerful that it can control what we put in our own bodies. If you want to smoke weed, you should be able to smoke weed. You should have that freedom. So, like, I don't think this question applies to me. Go ask Mr. Nightmare Fuel if you're interested. In all seriousness, though, like, I believe you should have the right to do whatever you want, assuming it doesn't hurt other people. But that's just my thoughts.
This of the right. Claim you're opposed to socialism and don't see government as the answer, and yet invariably you're celebrating the cops, the first responders, and the fire departments, and the jails, war, all big public sector programs. It's a kind of the socialism that you love. Why do you think that that's going to work better than the private sector?
I think it'll work better because you won't have, like, competing interests of monetary gain, and as well as the competing interests of public safety as you would with a, private military or a private firefighting district.
What is to stop them using government to cause evil to one another? And would it not be better that their influence be limited to that which they can achieve voluntarily, rather than to give them the added benefit of legitimized force?
If people are inherently evil, which I don't believe they are, shouldn't it be better to limit them to what they can do on freedom market? No, because that leads to discrimination, that leads to racism. Like, there's a reason why the South didn't desegregate until, like, Martin Luther King Jr. decided we need to speak out. Like people don't change willingly. Now, I'm critical of Black Lives Matter, but even I'll acknowledge the fact that people don't really react much unless you protest. But whatever, let's continue, shall we?
A major question that I have for proponents of state economic regulations in particular is how exactly can you sleep at night knowing the economic destruction that you have created? The effect of government regulations on output has been calculated to have an accumulated reduction cost on the American GDP of nearly $40 trillion just since 1949. In other words, absent of any federal economic regulations after World War II, we could have tripled our GDP. Every citizen could have an average income of $333,000 instead of $53,000, a $277,000 increase in the average income. This doesn't even factor in the cost of compliance, rent-seeking, and state-level regulations. We could have had so much more prosperity and so much less poverty without state regulations on our economy. So how can you look your opponents in the eye and claim that your regulations are somehow for the common man?
I sleep perfectly fine at night because I believe that I'm correct. And how do you sleep at night? Arguing to destroy the natural ecosystem by getting rid of everything. People like you are the reason why Trump repealed, like, all Obamacare. You want to get rid, you want to destroy the natural world to fuel the economic machine. Sorry, I'm opposed to that. But I think my children should have the right to see a giant panda. And also, this math that you say that we would be so much richer, I want a citation. Give me a citation that our GDP would be 3 times as big. I know you can't, because this is just something you made up from imaginary land. So please, I sleep fine, so do you. Let's move on. You gotta love the moral indignation we got going on here.
Statists. When you're opposing drug laws, especially weed, you argue the government shouldn't be so powerful that it can tell people what they can and can't put into their own bodies. So why, when it comes to gun laws, do you think the government should be so powerful that it can have a complete monopoly over effective force?
I'm not a gun control advocate, but these guys are so dumb and condescending they make me defend it. Police should have access more readily to guns than I do because they can actually use their guns effectively. That's the answer. Also, I'm not in favor of gun laws. I'm not in favor of, controlled substance laws. I think that's just an excuse to put people in jail and make them work menial jobs rather than actually try and rehabilitate them. So, no, I'm not particularly in favor of either of those laws.
The things you can't do without government permission. Build a house, drive a car, own a gun, go fishing, collect rainwater, hunt, cross the road, get married, leave the country, start a business, fly on a commercial plane, take drugs, work. It's actually hard to think of something that doesn't require government permission.
YouTube video describing why the government is terrible. That's what you can do without government permission. And I believe that collecting rainwater, doing drugs, owning a firearm, and getting I think those things shouldn't you shouldn't be required to have government permission to do like collect rainwater. Why is that illegal? Collecting firearms, why is that illegal? Collecting weed, why is that illegal? These are wastes of time. Now, fishing and hunting are done to preserve the natural ecosystem, which I'm in favor of, mainly because I'm, in particular, a very ecologist. I love animals, and I am an advocate for ecology. So I don't really like driving species to extinction to feed ourselves. Also, the airplane thing, we do that so that people don't ram planes into the side of buildings. That's why we do that.
Yes, how can you say you're free?
Quite well, in fact.
Being a democratically elected constitutional republic creates legitimate political authority. Does that mean that all the things that were done by the democratically elected constitutional republics of the Soviet Union, Nazi Germany, and North Korea, all those things were legitimate and justified?
Firstly, I don't think those three are actually democratic. I think they're fascist or, communist in the case of the last two. But, this is so stupid. Of course, what they did was not justified. I don't care if the government said it was okay. I look at the morality of the actions itself, not of the people committing the actions. The Holocaust was horrible. Other Holocausts were horrible. It's just so stupid. Always comparing America to these places, even though it's far better, in my eyes.
You're a proud, government-loving liberal who champions personal choice. Could you please explain why I can't choose to not fund the murder of innocent children abroad?
Why don't you vote to leave Afghanistan then? Or leave these other countries who have no business being in? I can't believe I have to defend interventionism and to such a degree, but we have to go there to fight ISIS and these threats to our country. Now, I don't particularly like it, mainly because I think it's not needed, but you don't get to choose what your taxes pay for because it's not your money anymore. It's the government's money. So vote to leave. That's how you can stop this madness.
Said there ought to be a law, or if you believe that government is the best solution to most of life's problems, I have one question for you. Are you prepared to kill? Every law, no matter how big or small it appears to be, is backed by violent force, and in cases, death.
I am not prepared to kill for drugs or guns, but to protect national safety, I am willing to kill terrorists. I really don't like having to say this, but like, these libertarians are really making me defend some stuff I really don't like defending. It's just so aggravating.
Really want the same people who run the DMV to be in charge of your health care?
Government is not some, mass, like, giant hive mind that everyone's identical. They are separate people. They have separate talents. They are trained differently than the people at DMV. I hate the DMV. It's freaking slow and obnoxious. But they are not the people who freaking tax you. They're not the president. They're not Congress. They're not the Senate. They're not the same people. What don't you get, you fool?
Why is it that you prefer anti-discrimination laws which force those who hate other races to hide that prejudice and make money off of those other races, to a system where they could be open about said prejudice and lose money?
Because it's not right to refuse someone service. Now, I'm not particularly fond with forcing people to do stuff they don't like, but I think in that case it's acceptable. Now, granted, if you're a small business owner and you don't want to sell someone a cake, I don't think you should be ostracized for it. But to say that that's, like, justified, it's not justified. You shouldn't deny anyone service at all for any reason. So let's continue.
You guys often say that libertarians have too much faith in the goodness of people. Why then do you, in the same breath, argue that I give up my right to bear arms and entrust my personal safety to police and gun-free zones? That's like pretty strong faith in human nature to me.
Gun-free zones, I think they're kind of crazy, but you have to put your trust in people who are well-trained, and these people are very well-trained. That's the reason, man. It's a shame, but it's the truth.
Since the war on drugs has been an absolute failure, what makes you think a war on guns would be any different?
I think it would be any different. I think banning guns and banning other things are completely, like, counterproductive. They don't change the attitude. They just make people resentful. They make people hateful. I think banning guns or having gun control is a foolish endeavor made by people who don't want to have actual responsibility for their actions. So would rather just ban people from even having it. So stop asking these questions to everyone, implying that everyone agrees with them. Because I don't. These other people, these other quote-unquote statists, don't speak for me. They don't share my values. They're liberal cowards who would rather take away people's guns than actually educate people about gun safety and mental illness. So, like, that's the issue I take.